Over 67,000 emergency room visits every single year, just from circular saws. And here's the stat nobody tells you. 97% of those accidents don't happen on job sites. They happen in workshops like yours, on weekend projects, from mistakes nobody ever taught you to avoid. Today we're going to fix that. If you stick around until the end, you're going to leave this video knowing exactly what most beginners do wrong with a circular saw. Why some of those mistakes can ruin your project in seconds. And there's one in particular, number 7, that almost everyone makes out of pure instinct. And it's the most dangerous one of all. Don't go anywhere. The circular saw is probably the first power tool a beginner buys. And it makes total sense. It's versatile, it's relatively affordable, and you can build an enormous amount of stuff with it, even if you don't have room for a table saw or a miter saw. You can cut plywood, boards, beams, pretty much anything. But it has a learning curve most people underestimate. And the mistakes that come from that curve don't just ruin projects, some of them send people to the hospital. I made several of these mistakes when I was starting out, and I got lucky. I never got hurt. So this isn't a lecture. This is what I wish someone had told me before the first time I ever turned one on. Let's start with the mistake most beginners make in their very first week. Mistake number 1, I call it the death pinch. This is what happens when you rest a board across 2 sawhorses and cut right in the middle. It seems like the most logical thing in the world, but what actually happens is both ends of the board sag down from the weight, and that causes the middle section to rise up and squeeze the blade exactly where it's cutting. That's called kickback. The saw launches back toward you with the blade still spinning. If it's never happened to you, you have no idea how fast it goes. We're talking fractions of a second, no warning at all. The fix is almost embarrassingly simple. Move your cut toward one end of the board so the offcut falls freely to the ground instead of pinching the blade. A 15-second adjustment that can prevent a trip to the ER. And the same thing happens with plywood if you try to cut down the center of a full sheet. The sheet bends, the blade binds, and the saw kicks. Always support your cuts so the offcut has somewhere to go. Mistake number 2, the blade is set way too deep. A lot of beginners think the more blade that sticks out below the material, the more powerful and cleaner the cut. It's exactly backwards. The right setting is to adjust your blade depth so it only extends about a 1/4 inch below the bottom of the material you're cutting. That's it. With that depth, you get less tear out, less risk of kickback, and less exposed blade in case your hand ever drifts somewhere it shouldn't. Less blade spinning in the open, less chance something goes wrong. It takes 5 seconds with the depth lever on the side of any circular saw, and it changes everything about how the tool feels and performs. If you've never tried this, do it on your next cut. You'll notice the difference immediately. Mistake number 3, pulling the trigger with the blade already touching the wood. This jams the motor at startup. Modern saws from Milwaukee, DeWalt, or Ryobi have a protection system that senses that resistance and either shuts the tool off before it fully starts or makes it kick with a sharp jolt. That can throw you off balance and make you lose control. The rule is always the same. Trigger on. Wait for the blade to reach full speed. That takes about 2 or 3 seconds, and only then, move into the material in a smooth and steady motion. No forcing it through, no plunging. Let the blade do the work. A few seconds of patience. That's all it takes. And rushing this step is one of the most common ways beginners damage both their material and their saw. Mistake number 4, cutting on the wrong side of the line. It sounds like a small thing until it happens, and you waste a piece of wood you can't afford to replace. Every circular saw has a small notch or indicator on the base plate that shows you exactly where the blade is going to cut. The problem is the kerf, which is the width of material the blade actually removes. It eats up about 1/8 of an inch. If you line up your pencil mark in the center of that notch, instead of keeping it on the correct side, your piece comes out short. In woodworking, 1/8 of an inch is the difference between a perfect fit and a joint that won't close. There's no such thing as a board stretcher. Always make a test cut on a piece of scrap first before committing to your final piece. It costs you nothing, and it saves you from starting over. Mistake number 5. The good face of the plywood goes up when it should go down. Here's the reality that changes everything. The circular saw cuts from the bottom up. The teeth enter from below and exit from the top. That means all the tear out and splintering happens on the top face of the material, not the bottom. If you're cutting plywood and you want one face to come out clean, that face needs to be facing down during the cut. The face you're looking at while you cut is the one that's going to have the most damage. And if you want especially clean cuts on top of that, lay a strip of painter's tape over your cut line before marking it. The tape dramatically reduces splintering, especially when you're using a coarse framing blade that wasn't designed for fine finish work. It's a trick most beginners never hear about, and it makes a visible difference every single time. Mistake number 6, freehand cuts on wide stock. There are professional carpenters who have been making freehand cuts for 20 years, and they come out perfect every time. You're not that carpenter yet, and that's completely fine. The fix is cheap and takes 30 seconds to set up. A speed square costs under $10 and gives you a perfect guide for cross cuts on narrow boards. You just hook it over the edge of the board, press the shoe of the saw against it, and cut. For wider material, a circular saw guide for around $40 turns your saw into something very close to a track saw. You clamp it down, run the shoe along the edge, and every cut comes out straight. The difference between a guided cut and a freehand cut, in terms of accuracy and edge quality, is enormous. Your projects will show it immediately, and so will your joints. And now, mistake number 7, the one almost nobody talks about, and the one that causes more injuries among beginners than any other: laying the material flat on the floor and kneeling over it to make the cut. It seems like the most stable way to hold a large panel, especially if you don't have sawhorses or a work table available. The problem is serious. When the blade cuts all the way through the material, it hits the floor directly underneath, and the floor doesn't give. What does give is the blade. It catches, it binds, and the kickback goes straight up, directly toward whoever is doing the cutting. If your blade is also set to maximum depth, the consequences can be severe. The fix is to use scrap 2x4s underneath the panel to lift it off the floor. 4 supports, 1 near each corner. The blade cuts through the material. The open space below absorbs the end of the cut, and there's no kickback. 4 pieces of scrap wood you already have in the shop, and that cost you absolutely nothing. This one change eliminates one of the most dangerous setups in beginner woodworking. Now that you know the mistakes, there's one more thing that completely changes your results with a circular saw: the blade itself. Most new saws ship with a 24-tooth blade designed for fast cuts in framing lumber. Rough construction work. That blade is built for speed, not quality. If you're cutting plywood, melamine, or any material where the quality of the cut actually matters, you need a 40 to 60 tooth blade. The difference is so dramatic, it feels like you're using a completely different tool. The cut is slightly slower, but the surface comes out clean enough to use without sanding. No splintering, no tear out, just a smooth, consistent edge. It's the most affordable upgrade you can make to your circular saw. Under $30 in most cases, and the impact on your work quality is immediate and visible from the very first cut. If you haven't made this switch yet, do it before your next project. One last thing before you go. A lot of people skip eye protection when they're using a circular saw because they think the blade guard is enough. It isn't. Blade dust and small fragments come off the top of the cut at speed, and they go exactly where your face is. Safety glasses cost $3. They weigh nothing. Put them on every single time. It's the easiest habit to build, and the one most people skip right up until the day they wish they hadn't. The circular saw is one of those tools that looks simple when you use it right, and it is. But simple doesn't mean it teaches itself. These 7 mistakes are made by almost everyone who starts out, not because they're careless, but because nobody explained why certain habits are dangerous and others aren't. Now you know, and the next time you pick one up, you're going to work completely differently. If you want to know which blade to buy first for your saw, based on the type of cuts you make most often, I break it all down in the next video. It's right there.